The year is 2025, and many of you guys, myself included, find ourselves in these situations online and conversations where we're defending the use of topical retinol. A lot of myths and misconceptions out there that we need to debunk, correct people. Or maybe you even have these conversations in real life with people. You social butterfly, you. Real life interactions? Wow. Some of these are going to be refreshers for many of you, but some of you are new here and maybe you're newly considering a retinol. Maybe you've heard some of these quote-unquote scary things. So just to take a step back, retinol is just sort of an umbrella term for active forms of topical vitamin A, we'll say. There are prescription active forms of topical vitamin A that are the most evidence-based. They're medications used to treat skin diseases. Tretinoin, tazarotene, trifarotene, adapalene. But in the drugstore, you can buy cosmetics that have active forms of vitamin A. They're called retinol, OL, or retinaldehyde. And these are useful for, well, cosmetic things, improving the appearance of the skin, improving the signs of skin aging, wrinkles, age spots. I know you guys live in different areas of the world, so you might actually have some of the prescription forms of topical vitamin A that are prescription only here in the US where I live. They may be over the counter for you without a prescription. Here in the US, we do have a retinol medication, if you will, adapalene, that you can buy over the counter. It is FDA approved for the treatment of acne. Number one myth I hear about these is that they thin the skin. And I understand why people start to believe this. What does retinol do? Well, it gets into the skin, it binds to receptors to influence cell behavior, and ultimately helps the epidermis, the top part of your skin, behave more efficiently. With age and certain underlying skin conditions, the natural turnover processes of the epidermis can get very wonky, lead to skin problems, pore clogging, dry, rough skin texture. So retinol helps to get that back on track. It's like organizing. As it does that, what happens is, because things are turning over efficiently, the outermost dead layer, it's called the stratum corneum, it gets very compact and smooth, which for aesthetic purposes is great. Smooth, more radiant skin, right? That's one of the benefits. That outermost dead layer used to look more like shredded wheat, just kind of loosey-goosey. Visually, that makes the skin look a lot duller. Now that the outermost layer is more compact, smooth, it technically is thinner, but the overall skin thickness, the thickness of the epidermis and the dermis, much better. In fact, retinol is an umbrella category of active forms of vitamin A, no matter the form, can actually help improve not only the thickness of the deeper layers of the skin, but can reverse actual skin thinning. Because if you've ever used any of these forms of topical vitamin A and then went to get your face waxed, ouch, 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 it's going to pull off a lot of skin. So it kind of seems like it's thinning the skin. The reason that it pulls off a lot of skin though with the waxing is not because the skin itself is thin, but that outermost dead crusty layer that was previously being ripped off, it's a lot more compact, smooth, and even. So there's less to grip, and as a result, more of the deeper stuff comes off, and you can get pretty uncomfortable sores. That's why they ask you when you go to a waxing salon or whatever, are you using retinol? Because this can happen. So no, doesn't thin the skin. Number two myth, misconception is that topical forms of vitamin A should not be used if you are breastfeeding. False. All forms of topical vitamin A, the cosmetic stuff, retinol, retinaldehyde, the prescription stuff, all safe in breastfeeding. With the added caveat that don't put these directly on your boob and then latch your baby on. Feeding baby retinoid, kind of weird. Is it going to kill your baby? Let's not try it out. I think a lot of people extrapolate that it's not safe to use during breastfeeding because we encourage people not to use it during pregnancy. Why? Well, the oral forms of active vitamin A, like isotretinoin, they cause severe birth defects. So not safe for pregnant women at all to take those medications. It is just kind of assumed out of an abundance of caution that probably best not to put them on your skin as well. That being said, it's actually very unlikely that topical forms of vitamin A, the cosmetic stuff especially, and the prescription stuff would actually cause fetal harm. We don't want to test it, we don't want to try it out. And I'm telling you this not to say, oh yeah, go ahead and use it during pregnancy. I'm telling you this because what happens is a lot of people use these ingredients, whether it be the cosmetic stuff or the prescription stuff, and then, oops, didn't realize I was pregnant and I've been continuing to use it all this time. You might freak out and say, oh my gosh, have I harmed my baby? No, very unlikely. Just stop to be extra safe, but it wouldn't worry me. I actually have a video on retinol during pregnancy where I do more of a deep dive, break breaking this down. So if you're contemplating pregnancy, you're pregnant, watch that video, okay? Or if you got pregnant and you were using it and you're freaked out, watch that video for additional reassurance. Number 3 myth I've seen a lot on TikTok is that topical retinol, cosmetic or prescription, will grow your hair. Intellectually stimulating as that can be, because yes, retinol does improve cell turnover, does improve the delivery of nourishing growth factors to the follicle, it's never been shown to actually grow hair. And people assume that it does grow hair, and so then they get worried, oh, well, if it grows hair on the scalp by putting it in the scalp, is it going to grow hair on my face? No. Here's where I think people have been led to believe that it must grow your hair. It appears in a couple of small studies that tretinoin, which is a prescription form of vitamin A, may help people get better results with the hair loss medication minoxidil applied to the scalp for a couple of reasons. Number 1, it probably helps with better penetration of minoxidil into the hair follicle because, again, it's making that outermost dead layer nice and smooth and compact, and in doing so, you get better, more efficient, more even, and consistent penetration of topicals. The other reason is that minoxidil, the drug for hair loss, it's not actually, it's what we call a prodrug. It's not actually active as is. You have to convert it to its active form. There's an enzyme that does that, but not everyone's enzyme is like showing up to the party. Some enzymes show up late. Some people just maybe don't have very active levels of that enzyme, and that's actually thought to be a reason why some people don't respond to topical minoxidil, an FDA-approved hair loss treatment. But topical tretinoin might actually improve the levels of that enzyme, allowing for people to finally get results with minoxidil. There's actually not a ton of research to support this. There's just like a small trial. So more research is needed. It's promising, and a lot of people who don't respond to minoxidil might try to use topical tretinoin and their minoxidil to see if they get over the hump. In those cases, it's worth trying. But just to be clear, putting tretinoin on your scalp or your face or anywhere else is not going to grow hair. All right, this is one I've debunked a lot, and some of you guys are like, oh, okay, we already know this. But it does get perpetuated, repeated, especially in the summer months. And that is, if you use a topical retinol, it will make you sensitive to the sun. And that's actually false. For something to be photosensitizing, to make you more photosensitive, it would need to actually lower what's called the minimal erythematous dose, the amount of ultraviolet radiation exposure needed to begin to visibly damage your skin. And retinol, cosmetic and non, doesn't do that. It doesn't do that, and actually there's some evidence that topical forms of vitamin A, because of the way they work, when used, of course, in conjunction with sun protection, might actually help mitigate some of the damaging effects of sun exposure. In other words, you don't need to stop your form of vitamin A in the summer months or before a beach vacation. It doesn't make you more sensitive to the sun. But protect your skin from the sun regardless of using topical retinol or not. Number 5 is that if you have rosacea, then retinol is not allowed. You have to stay away from it. It's forbidden, and you just have to, cry the rosacea tears because you're not allowed to use it. We're going to put you in a corner. Nobody puts baby in a corner. If you have rosacea, you know firsthand, anything you put on your skin can be uncomfortable, burn, sting. You're really sensitive to topical stuff. That is part and parcel with having rosacea, although some people are less bothered by topicals than others. Not all rosacea patients are identical, but topical forms of vitamin A, they can be hard to tolerate if you have rosacea, but they actually, in the long run, can be incredibly beneficial because they help quite a bit, actually, calm down the inflammation and improve the development of those little bumps, the acne-like bumps that people with rosacea get. So they actually can be really helpful. And they may ultimately help to cut down on those little Demodex face mites, again, by helping to normalize epidermal turnover so you don't have the buildup of dry, rough skin that kind of fuels those Demodex mites that come out to snack at night when the lights go out. I'm not making this up. Sounds dystopian. It sounds like some sort of Stephen King thing, mites coming out of your pores when you sleep. It's a real thing. Everybody's got it. Happens to all of us. But if you have rosacea, that mite is just too much of a freak and is jacking you up. The topical retinoid might actually help in the long run for that aspect. And some topical retinols have anti-inflammatory properties that make them beneficial, honestly, in treating a variety of issues, including rosacea. So don't let anyone tell you that it's not allowed. Understand that you got to be a little bit more conservative with introducing it. You got to go really slow. I have a whole video on how to do this. So I'm going to link that down below. It's called How to Use Retinol with No Irritation. And I give a lot of tips and tricks there. All right, this one always makes me chuckle. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, honestly, on TikTok, you see, and in real life, you see all these really, really young girls, like middle school age tweens, going berserk over skincare and having these elaborate, like 9-step skincare routines. Hopefully some of that craze is dying down a bit, but it's wild. And so a lot of them want to use retinol. People will say, oh, you're too young to use retinol. And I chuckle at that because the history of topical forms of vitamin A historically always has been used, the prescription stuff originally was used for and continues to be used for the treatment of acne in teens and tweens. So to say that they're too young for it is like, actually, they were the first age group using it for the most part. It wasn't until they got older then we really started to appreciate, hey, this has anti-aging benefits. Am I saying that your 12-year-old should start a retinol wrinkle serum? No, I'm not. I just like to point that out because some young people are going to need to use prescription retinoids to treat skin issues. Some young people may use cosmetic retinols at their parents' discretion. Is it going to be harmful for them long term? I don't think so, provided they protect their skin from the sun and they're not doing these elaborate 20-step routines with all these acids and things. Technically, I don't think that it is bad for them, but there's the mindset that goes into why is your child wanting to ward off wrinkles? They really need to just be protecting their skin from the sun and enjoying childhood. All right, along those lines, talking about using a bunch of exfoliants and all of that, the other myth is that retinol exfoliates. And actually, technically, it doesn't. So it works a little bit differently than an actual exfoliant would. So they're, chemical exfoliants, mechanical exfoliants, and I've got videos breaking down these, but to cut to the chase, you can go in with some sort of thing and sand away mechanically and kick off stuff, like a sugar scrub, for example, or you can use a chemical exfoliant to get in there and kind of dissolve bonds between cells and allow them to loosen up and shed. Retinol, it binds to receptors and alters cell behavior. So cells march along more efficiently, don't build up as much. Because of that behavior, using a topical form of vitamin A, using a topical retinol, again, umbrella term, all right, may negate your need to use a exfoliant. You may find that, stratum corneum's smooth, skin looking radiant. I don't really need to be sloughing stuff off. Especially anti-aging purposes and acne control, using a chemical exfoliant can still be beneficial when paired with a retinol. For example, patients who have acne oftentimes are going to be using, tretinoin and salicylic acid, a chemical exfoliant. Patients who have wrinkles, may benefit more using tretinoin or any other form of topical vitamin A for wrinkles, improving collagen, along with glycolic acid. There is some evidence there that together they get better results for wrinkles than either alone. So some people do still benefit quite a bit from continuing to use an exfoliant. The other thing I've debunked before, but also bears mentioning, especially getting back to you're too young for retinol, is that using a retinol will age your skin because it improves cell turnover. And so you've got this Hayflick limit people talk about, and that's not true. If you're a cell in a dish, then that applies, but the way our face is set up, we're good. We have these things called stem cells down the bottom and hair follicle that renew and repopulate the epidermis. And so this is not a reality. Your skin doesn't age because you run out of cells or, you reach a telomere shortening effect, and retinol doesn't hasten aging by, pressing the gas pedal on any of that because you have stem cells and you have this principle of renewal. The other myth that I see perpetuated a lot here and there online is that the cosmetic stuff, which would include retinol and retinaldehyde, is an epic waste of time. It's a gimmick. It's just out there to separate you from your dollar. And that's not true. Now, the cosmetic stuff, retinol, retinaldehyde, it's a cosmetic. It's intended for improving cosmetic things, wrinkles, age spots, the appearance of aging skin. There is good evidence that these ingredients can work. Is it the robust clinical trials that I would say, yeah, let's treat a disease with that? No. It's a cosmetic ingredient though. I would say as far as cosmetic ingredients go, the evidence for them helping is actually really good. Is it the robust kind of data that we would want to guide clinical decision making? No. While skincare can support certain certain skin issues, and there are over-the-counter medications that treat skin diseases, cosmetics are not medications. They're cosmetic. They're intended for cosmetic benefit. Cosmetics can provide a complementary role to medications used to treat disease, but they're not intended for that. So I find that the discourse around comparing the cosmetics to the medications used to treat disease, it's like apples and oranges here. And they definitely can work, and there's good evidence that they work. Is it, again, the robust kind of stuff that you would want to substantiate treating a patient with a disease? No. But it's actually really good for stuff that you're buying in the store for cosmetic purposes. It's above and beyond what you're going to get pretty much in any other ingredient that is used for cosmetic purposes. Way more research supporting that than peptides even, or growth factors. So you can get results from those just like you can with the prescription stuff. It just takes longer. And the other issue with those is that unlike drugs, which are a lot more regulated, medications, a lot more regulated, standardized, consistent, like what you see is what you get, there's not going to be heterogeneity, is that there's a lot of heterogeneity. There's a lot out there where, what you're relying on is the formulation to be effective. You're relying on a good formulation. So when it comes to those cosmetic ingredients, yes, they can work. They work slower, but yes, it can work for improving the visible signs of skin aging, just like the prescription stuff. They take longer to work, but I suggest going with reputable companies that have a lot of R&D. Now, if you're like, I want something more standardized, go with adapalene. If you're here in the States, FDA approved for the treatment of acne, but we do have objective evidence, clinically and histologically, meaning taking biopsies out of skin after use, that it does improve the visible signs of skin aging and improves collagen production. So that's a lot more standardized. That's if you're like, I don't know, I don't want to, trust a brand. I get it. Okay, go with adapalene. It's a lot more. What you see is what you get. Last but not least, people get really hung up on percentages. The percent of retinol, whether it be prescription or the cosmetic stuff. Listen, when it comes to treating skin diseases with the prescription stuff, percentages can make a difference, especially like, for example, acne. Some patients' acne is a lot more responsive to a higher percentage of a prescription retinoid, like tretinoin or adapalene. Lower percentages are not often working quickly enough or, penetrating as efficiently, we'll say, for certain skin diseases. They need a higher percentage. But for people just out there interested in improving the visible signs of skin aging, improving collagen production, smoothing out wrinkles, fading age spots, I would not get so hung up on the percentage, because as long as you are consistent with using it and you use it on a regular basis, it's going to work. You don't need to graduate up in percentage, for example, of tretinoin to get improvement in wrinkles. Also, when it comes to buying the cosmetic stuff, retinol or retinaldehyde, don't get hung up on where the ingredient appears in the ingredient list and use that to try and deduce efficacy, because again, overall formulation is going to dictate efficacy and not necessarily where it appears on the ingredient list. Like certain systems encapsulate, and there's all the science. So I wouldn't get too hung up on, this product, the retinol is up higher on the ingredient list, so it's going to be more concentrated. Higher percent does not mean more effective. With the cosmetic, you might get a high percentage of something that's just the formulation isn't that stable, doesn't have good penetration, so you're, at the end of the day, maybe you're only getting a fraction of that into the skin, whereas a lower percentage from a more reputable brand might actually have a lot more behind its delivery system, allowing for good penetration. All right, y'all, that's a roundup of 10 common retinol myths, misconceptions. I do have a retinol playlist for those of you who are intrigued to learn more about retinols. I will link that down below in the description box. But if you guys enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.